Today, history will be made as 175 new faces will be sworn in as MPs in the Parliament of Sri Lanka. This is a brand new record, which is why I said that history will be made today. A very good morning and welcome. You're watching the Breakfast Rundown on TV1. We're coming to you live and direct from our Newsfirst studios here in Colombo. I'm Therunee Karunaratne. Well, the inaugural session of the 10th Parliament of Sri Lanka will commence at 10 a.m. today. And this morning on the Breakfast Rundown, we have a very comprehensive rundown on what exactly you can expect at the inaugural parliamentary session. And of course, as always, we have a few key international top stories as well. So do stay tuned with us right throughout. Well, with that, let's move on to our top story this morning, which concerns the inaugural session of the 10th Parliament of Sri Lanka. The event is set to get underway at 10 a.m. today. The first task on the agenda will be appointing a new speaker to the Parliament. Well, the speaker is considered the third citizen of Sri Lanka. Accordingly, after the President and the Prime Minister of the country, it is the Speaker of the Parliament who is considered the most respected citizen of Sri Lanka. Since the beginning of Sri Lanka's parliamentary history in 1931, 21 members of Parliament have been appointed as the Speaker of the country. General Secretary of the Parliament, Karunaratne, spoke on the appointment of the new Speaker, which is set to take place today. She says that first, she will announce the first item on the agenda, which is the appointment of the Speaker. Thereafter, a request will be made for a name of a suitable MP to be nominated. Now, this name also has to be seconded by another MP within the Parliament. That MP should have been asked beforehand whether or not he or she would like to serve as the Speaker of the country, or whether or not they are ready to take on the responsibility of the Speaker of Sri Lanka. Now, if no objections are raised, that MP will be announced as the Speaker of the 10th Parliament of Sri Lanka by the General Secretary of Parliament, Karunaratne. Well, what happens if more than one name is nominated? The General Secretary says that if more than one name is nominated, a secret vote will be carried out in order to select the new Speaker of the Parliament of Sri Lanka. Thereafter, the MP who proposed the name and the MP who seconded will escort the newly selected Speaker to the parliamentary seat designated for the Speaker. Then, he or she will take oaths before the General Secretary of Parliament. Then, following a short thanking speech from the newly appointed Speaker, all the newly elected MPs will be sworn in. Thereafter, time will be allocated for one congratulatory speech, each from both the opposition and the government. Following this, the new Speaker will then announce the next item on the agenda, which is the appointment of a Deputy Speaker to the Parliament. Well, that was the detailed rundown of the initial phase of Parliament procedures that can be expected this morning. And later in the day, President Anura Kumara Dissanayake is also set to present his government's policy statement. Now, we know all about the procedure about the appointment of the Speaker. Thereafter, as I just mentioned, the government's policy statement will be presented to the Parliament by President Anura Kumara Dissanayake, and this is scheduled to take place at 11:30 a.m. What is the exact procedure in this regard? Well, the Sergeant-at-Arms of the Parliament of Sri Lanka, Karunaratne, says that the President will be welcomed to the parliamentary complex 10 minutes before this event is scheduled, which is at 11:20 a.m. He will be welcomed by the newly appointed Speaker and the General Secretary to the Parliament near the staircase by the entrance of the Parliament. Then, the Sergeant-at-Arms and his deputy will be ushering the President through the dressing room. It is from this dressing room that the procession to escort the President to the parliamentary chambers, where he will be presenting the policy statement, will begin. At 11:30 a.m., the ceremonial bell will be rung and the President will enter the chambers of the Parliament. He will be seated in the special seat designated for him. At this point, the seat designated for the Speaker will be removed and the seat will be replaced by the seat designated for the President. The Speaker is then supposed to sit with the General Secretary Board in the row of seats below the President's seat. After the President concludes presenting the government's policy statement, he will then announce the adjournment of the parliamentary session. This will mark the conclusion of the initial procedures of today's inaugural parliamentary session. Afterwards, there will be a tea break and the President will thereafter depart the parliamentary complex. Well, that is a full rundown of what to expect at today's inaugural parliamentary session, which will commence at 10:30 a.m. today. Well, we at Newsfirst are all set to bring to you live updates all the way from the parliamentary complex in Sri Jayawardhanapura Kotte from 9 a.m. this morning. So feel free to tune in for the very latest in this regard. Now, this year's parliamentary election is quite a special one, as over 175 new faces have been selected to Parliament and they will be sworn in at today's inaugural parliamentary session. The majority of these first-time MPs are from the National People's Power. Meanwhile, a workshop is scheduled to be held on the 25th, 26th and 27th of this month for MPs who entered the Parliament for the very first time. During these sessions, the MPs will be briefed on the parliamentary procedures as well as the operational process of the Parliament. General Secretary of Parliament Kushani Rohanadira says that these newly appointed MPs will be provided with all the information that they will require to serve as an MP in Sri Lanka during these workshops. Let's move on to your weather update for this morning. The Met Department says a low-pressure area is likely to form over the southeast Bay of Bengal around the 23rd of November. Thereafter, it is likely to intensify into a depression over the southwest Bay of Bengal during the subsequent 2 days. This system may intensify further and move near the eastern coast of Sri Lanka. The general public is requested to be attentive to the future forecasts and bulletins issued by the Met Department in this regard. Well, the Met Department also says that showers or thunder showers will occur at times in the northern, north central as well as eastern provinces. Showers or thunder showers will occur at several places elsewhere over the island during the evening or night. Heavy showers above 100 millimeters are likely at some places in the western, Sabaragamuwa and southern provinces. Misty conditions can be expected at some places in the western, Sabaragamuwa, central, Uva and southern provinces during the morning hours as well. And as always, the general public is requested to take adequate precautions to minimize damages caused by temporary localized strong winds and lightning during these thunder showers. Well, let's shift your attention to news overseas. Indian billionaire Gautam Adani has been charged with fraud in the US, which has accused him of orchestrating a $250 million bribery scheme and concealing it to raise money in the United States. The criminal charges, which were filed on Wednesday in New York, are the latest blow to 62-year-old Adani, one of India's richest men, whose business empire extends from ports to airports to renewable energy. In the indictment, prosecutors allege the tycoon and other senior executives had agreed to the payments to Indian officials to win contracts for his renewable energy company, expected to yield more than $2 billion in profits over a period of 20 years. The Adani Group did not immediately respond to a request for comments. The conglomerate has been operating under a cloud in the US since 2023, when a high-profile company published a report accusing it of fraud. These claims, which Adani denied, prompted a major market sell-off. Reports of this bribery probe have been circling for months. Prosecutors said the US started investigating the company in the year 2022 and found the inquiry to be obstructed. Well, let's move on to another story from overseas. On yesterday's edition of the Breakfast Rundown, we brought to you one of the latest developments concerning the escalation of the Russia-Ukraine war. Well, today we have another development in this regard. Now, to give you a small insight into yesterday's development, Russia had reported that Ukraine had fired US-supplied longer-range missiles at its territory for the very first time. Today's development is that Ukraine has fired UK-supplied Storm Shadow missiles at targets inside Russia for the very first time. The war-torn country was previously restricted to using long-range missiles within its own borders. Reports of the strikes come after Ukraine was given permission from Washington to fire US-supplied missiles at the Russian territory. The government has refused to comment on the reports for operational reasons, but officials confirmed Defense Secretary John Healey spoke to his Ukrainian counterpart on Tuesday night. Ministers are likely to exercise caution in their response to the reports due to concerns over Russia's reaction, as well as to ensure the move is not seen as being led by the United Kingdom. In the comments earlier, Healy said, quote, Ukraine's action on the battlefield speaks for itself, unquote. Ukraine's defense minister Rustem Umerov has also declined to confirm that his country has used the Storm Shadow missiles within the Russian territory, but said it was using all the means to defend his country. With that, let's move on to a sports story for this morning. Indian all-rounder Hardik Pandya is back on top of the T20 International All-Rounders list in the ICC rankings, while Tilak Varma has broken into the top 10 among batters for the very first time. Pandya displaced England's Liam Livingstone at the top and also overtook Nepal's Dipendra Singh Airi after he picked up 2 wickets and scored 18, 39 not out and 2 in the T20 internationals against South Africa. Well, his performance was his spell of 1 for 8 that included a maiden in 3 overs in the 4th T20 international in Johannesburg. The last time Pandya rose to the top of the all-rounders list was just a few months ago after India won the T20 World Cup in June, also by beating South Africa. Well, that brings to a close this morning's edition of the Breakfast Rundown. This is a gentle reminder for you to tune in to Sirasa TV for the very latest updates coming to you live and direct from the Parliament complex in Sri Jayawardhanapura Kotte with regards to today's inaugural session of the 10th Parliament of Sri Lanka. I'll see you again on the Breakfast Rundown tomorrow at 7 a.m. on TV1. Until then, take care. Have a wonderful day ahead.